Hi everyone, I'm audible. So pleasure having hosting Sai, who's CTO at at FreshBus. Um, so this is a little bit of a change of tack for us. I mean, in the morning we heard from people who move parcels, pharma, other critical equipment, but FreshBus is in the business of moving people, right? So naturally, safety is core to their business. And over the past few months, as our company LightMetrics has been interacting with FreshBus and we've been working with them, piloting our solution, we've learned a lot about that business, right? And really opened at least my eyes to how such an operation runs, where you're carrying the most critical cargo, right, which is people. So I want to start with what is the culture at FreshBus? What is customer centricity when you're moving people, not parcels? And I also want to hear, as the CTO at such an organization, what is your day-to-day like, Sai?
Firstly, thank you for inviting me. And thank you everybody for, I think this is a great platform to come discuss and look forward to. So firstly, I just want to introduce FreshBus as a brand, why it came into existence in the first place, right? It is built by Sudhakar. So in his previous stint, he founded Avibus and solved a lot of problems there. Like he brought a lot of ticketing system online, solved for insurance. First guy who had to run to banks and get insurance, right? But the real problem lies still on the road, right? As passengers still have bad customer experience. So he had this vision to make that customer experience better. And when I met him, I was really sold about the vision, because I've been a bus traveler all my life, and I know the pain points of, not having a good midpoint, or like a lot of small things, but making the travel uncomfortable, right? Which need to change, right? And which will change. So I'm really happy to be part of the journey to kind of change that. So coming to your question.
Yes. Yeah, so, that's great, right? And, now you are the CTO at FreshBus, right? So, first of all, and this is my ignorance, right, that such a role exists in such a company itself was very heartening and, evoked a lot of questions, right? So wanted to understand, what's your day-to-day like, right?
Yeah, I think first let me, I'm let's just say the third or fourth employee at FreshBus, and when I joined, the vision is very simple, right? To have a standardized experience, not just a good experience, a standardized experience, right? Because if you want to travel probably from Hyderabad to Vijayawada or Bangalore to Tirupati, you know what to expect, right? Otherwise, you'll probably be here and there thinking of some different things. And the only way to achieve that is through tech, right? To build the strong SOPs and to be able to translate those SOPs into actionable, insights, to make them better, to close that feedback loop, right? So from day one, it has been what exists in the industry, build on top of it, like throw a few things out, rebuild them, right? And kind of get to a state over the last 2.5 years. I think the previous panel also highlighted it. It needs that 2 to 3 years of investment. And I'm proud that we have kind of done that.
No, thanks, Sai. And carrying on from that, right? So in the previous panels, we heard, right, that words have meaning and importance, right? So Rima, from Rima Transport, she said that they call their drivers sarthis, and Raman said we call them captains, and that's what something you also said, right? You've from the very beginning, you understand that the driver is the centerpiece of your operation. He's actually responsible for 46 lives, right? And so FreshBus actually from the very beginning dignity to that profession, enabling them, and you talk about what you're doing with the Telangana government around women captains and all of that, right? I think if you can touch upon that, right, and that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think this is one topic that I always pride talking about and being part of FreshBus and talking about this topic because one of the professions which is highly underrated, especially in India, is driving, right? And the amount of respect that they deserve, I believe, is missing, right? And from day one, we are of the opinion that they are our representatives on the ground, right? And we did things in like over a period of time to make sure that they are comfortable. We put them on our payroll. We have insured their stuff. They have a medical insurance, right? They have PF accounts, right? So multiple stories. I'll just say one story. When I was talking to one captain, he was very happy that he was able to secure a loan for his kid to go and study, right? So this is something that moved me because translating whatever we are doing on the ground is what helps us. So I think a lot of answers to the questions in this industry rests in culture and building that culture and also improving on top of it. I know we all acknowledge the fact that there is a lack of good captains in this industry, right? And we also acknowledge the requirement for new generations to come in. And the only time that they will want to come in is if they see the kind of respect that they deserve, right? Yes, money matters, but I strongly feel that more than money, respect and the way we treat them matters a lot.
Thanks, Sai. And of course, this is a deep dive, but I wanted to kind of come into it. Why we are working with FreshBus is because safety is critical to their operations. As you said, right? I mean, they're their employees, the captains, and then they're responsible for 46 lives. So that's critical, right? But this we were just talking just a moment ago before getting on stage, right? And just like I think Raman said, right? There are some of these nuances in the Indian industry where you really need to understand them, right? Like he said that pilferage of fuel happens, right? And at some point you factor that in, and of course you'll try to solve that. So Sai was telling me this interesting, and when you're talking about safety, of course there's things on how you reduce accidents. I don't know if you can share, right? This unique problem, right, where drivers on a route, either Bangalore, Hyderabad, or wherever, are being stopped by people, right, who are sometimes
yeah,
not
I'll
in,
probably share that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this happened not long ago, 3 days ago, while I was in my Vijayawada depot, right? We were doing a captain training exercise on how to deal with certain situations, what happens in certain areas, because it helps them, right? They are the best at driving. They have at least 10 to 15 years of experience. We don't need to teach them driving, right? All we need to let them know is how you could make your life easier and the lives of the customers easier. So one captain highlighted this problem about there were certain passengers onboarding who were drunk, right? At that point, like on the road, right? If it were in an airport or a controlled environment, right? It's pretty easy. You can just like cuff him up and then hand him over to the authorities. But on the road, especially when in the area of the passenger, right, it's very difficult. And given customer experience is the core of our journey, we cannot just do anything with the customer. So this case, I think we talked internally. Can we solve it? Today we cannot, right? Because it's the empowerment that is required in the entire public to start respecting them. Because they are doing this job probably 8 hours a day, and 8 hours a day driving, even if we drive, right, it's not an easy job, right? So we have to respect them and see to it that, okay, give them a smile, right? Say that good morning, good afternoon. That would go a long way for them, right? And all I could tell him at that point is two simple words, okay? Thanks because you had to take that, and sorry, because we cannot do anything about it, at least at this point in time, right?
No, thanks. And for me, why it was interesting is, and even when we started piloting with FreshBus is right. So if we come with the assumption that we have this product or solution and this is the solution to your problems, that's 99% of the time going to be incorrect, right? And which is why, when we try to work with an enterprise like FreshBus, right? First, it's a very listening kind of mentality that we have before we get into the pilot. And, we're not really trying to, like, quote unquote, sell anything, right? And, in our business, right, where we are selling the value proposition of safety, right? It's a different kind of engagement. So coming to that, right, one of the things that what LightMetrics does is, video telematics is about delivering safety and efficiency outcomes to fleets of all kinds, right? Could be logistics, could be mining, could be oil and gas, hazmat, and of course, people transportation. But so when we looked at the India landscape, right, and we've been in India for the last, 4 years or so, but not as much in passenger transportation, right? What we saw was, a lot of focus on cost. Of course, cost is important, right? As a CTO, as a procurement manager for a fleet. So, commoditized Chinese dash cams. Now they have a fleet of like 82 buses, they're scheduled to grow to like 250, 300 buses by the year end, right? Now, if something goes wrong on a camera out there in the field in middle of the night, right? And there's an incident, you cannot retrieve that, right? That's an issue, right? But these were very common, right? So technology has to scale, right? Has to give you visibility, right? So I just wanted to hear about you, as a CTO, like very critical, as you said, your founder said his vision is, if you are to grow, if you are to actually build a meaningful business, technology has to be core. What has been your experience with existing solutions today?
Yeah, so one of my biggest strengths is technology. So I've been in this world and I've solved multiple problems so far. So I think the core of it is to understand the problem the best, right? Because this is one industry which doesn't need rocket science today, right? Or like very complicated systems. Yes, AI does help. We are using AI for compliance, as making sure that whatever is put up is being used. And today's technology advancements are to a level that if we are able to frame the problem properly, right, and be able to put that in the right set of context, right, we can solve it. Right, so I'll tell you, and that's where I think I'm very proud of the team that we have, right? Somebody like Ram, somebody like Srinivas Garu, somebody like, so with the wealth of experience that we have in our team, because I can always come out and say that I solved this, right, technically, but the real solutions doesn't happen with technology. The real solutions always happen with these discussions and the intent to solve the right problem. Because that intent is what translates into that proper problem statement. Once you have a problem statement, I think, yes, we can solve them. And I'll give you a very simple example, right? Just to rephrase these questions. So we have an SOP compliance for our bus, meaning that every time the bus goes out of the depot, photos were taken, right? And we just need to make sure that they are the right photos, right? Like, for example, you're taking the front of a bus, the side of a bus. So I can build a operations app which could take photos, right? But I have to work with Ram to understand what is important, to work with Jairao Garu to understand what would add value to him in the long term, right? So that business requirements, when discussed properly and translated properly, would help me in solving those problems, right? So today it might be very simple, right? It's a small operations app. It hardly took a month or two to build, but the kind of value that it adds for me over a period of time, so it takes 10 minutes for my depot manager to just go take those photos and all. Now he checks everything. So he is reminded that, yeah, I have to check the front of the bus, I have to check the back of the bus, I have to check the compartment, I have to check whether the first aid kit is there or not, right? And for the captain to check whether the spare is there or not. It's simple, but it's important, right? Yes, safety is very critical, but these small things would kind of translate safety into a, like, I'm proud that, my bus has all the compliances. Government did a great job. I think they did, the laws are great, right? So we just need to make sure that we comply to as many of them. And wherever needed, suggest them one or two things, they can make those policy changes. And I think also from the previous panel, right? The public-private partnership is the way to go, where people like you, people like us, has to invest time, because it's not, it doesn't just come easy, right? It comes over time. We have to wait, we have to learn, we have to listen, right? And we have to also solve those problems one at a time. And I'm very happy that 2 years back or 1 year back, where we were and where we are today are way different.
Oh, thanks, Sai, about that, right? So, taking off from that, right? So we started piloting with you, I think 3 months ago or so, and you were involved. Ram was very involved at a deep technical level. And as I said, we listened to you about your operations and what you really want to achieve as a safety outcome. So, what about LightMetrics appealed to you? Just to give reference, and we are there in like 35 countries today. So you said you're taking photos around the bus, right? So in the US, it's called EVIR or DVIR, Electronic Vehicle Inspection Report, and DVIR. It's actually a compliance thing, right, in school buses and all of that. So that's.
By the way, we learned it from the New York school department. So that guy was a friend of Jairao Garu. He was in our office telling us what they do.
Yes. So see, so this is so great, right? This cross-pollination of the best practices and ideas, right? Even though it's not a mandate in India, but you're still adopting it, right? So, so as you were talking to Subrajit and Lalit and team, right? What attracted you about LightMetrics and what appealed to you, thinking that they might be a good long-term partner who aligns with your mission of creating the safest passenger transportation fleet in India?
Yeah, I think the first point is that discussion did not start with a camera, right? Or like, just selling something. So it started with what kind of problems that are being solved, right? I think, as I said, technology can solve things, but the process and the intent, right? LightMetrics is the only team who came to me and told me that let's do a pilot for a period of time and understand. Right? Because I think an operational industry like this, the amount of research that happens is very minimal. Because every day we have to run from pole to pole, every day we have to, be involved in a number of things. Like I was in a meeting till this meeting was done. I would have actually loved to listen to all the panelists, but could not do that because that's how our lives are. It's very operational. Right, so that's where I think somebody like a LightMetrics, where they had experience not just in India. So there were multiple instances that Subrajit quoted me about, the study that they did in Australia, right? And also the fact that in Europe they don't like cameras, right? So and also, how do we really translate, the learnings that come in, right? For example, one of the things that Ram and I were discussing is, Sai, do we really want to have a huge monitoring team sitting and seeing these videos, seeing these alerts, calling those captains, right? No, we do not. Right? So what do we do about it? We have EV cars, we have high-end cars which vibrate, which give those alerts, right? They're needed. So then I asked Subrajit, he told me there was a pilot that they did in Australia, right? And I was literally jumping on it, because that kind of learnings is what would help us, because we need to build scalable systems, right? So at scale, a person would be a cost metric, right? Like for example, if I put like 1% for 20 buses, right? And as I scale, it will be more people, more people, more people, and there'll be human errors that come in. Then a PR management has to happen. So it's a huge cost, right? And forget cost, safety, right? So if I am able to give a small vibration to the captain, like what we have in our cars, and simply solve it there itself, why not? So this is where I think LightMetrics adds a lot of value. And no disrespect to the other vendors, because I've worked with other people. Some of them are very responsive. The moment I call them, they pick the call and kind of go ahead and do it. But I think what I saw really great is to be able to see the future and also be able to spend time, effort on research, and also to lay the foundations for the tomorrow of India.
No, thanks, Ian. Just to expand on what you said, right? So what we try to do is, leverage our experience in other markets, other sectors, and, present it to, say, new people prospects that we are trying to work with. In this specific case, what he talks about is, we have a pretty significant presence in mining in India, in LATAM, and primarily in Australia, right? So what happens is, the mining vehicles are these huge vehicles, very noisy environments. So typically the alerts that come from the camera are audio alerts, right? The speaker, you're blasting a message, which, by the way, can be in Telugu, can be in Hindi, whatever, we customize it, right? But in those environments, right, the mining fleet say it's too noisy, right? The drivers will not be able to hear it. So what we do is the camera has a GPIO, we connect it to a seat shaker, which goes under his seat. So if the driver is fatigued, right, if he's dozing off and we are seeing, so it'll buzz, right? So it's like a tactile feedback. And that I think Sai and team really liked, right? Because the drivers are doing overnight shifts, right? Carrying like 46 people. And that is where most of the accidents happen, right? Drivers are overworked, drowsy, whatever, right? How do you intervene in a way that actually makes sense, right? Okay, maybe stop, right? Stop for 5 minutes, take a break, have a tea, coffee, whatever. And the other thing that we're talking about is when we are deploying in Europe, for example, a very privacy sensitive market, right? So then you have to have options where you keep the driver's face, but you blur everybody else. Because a passenger has probably, in Europe, they have not consented to have their video recorded, right? So if you're capturing a driver violation, you should capture that, but make sure that everyone else's faces are blurred, anonymized properly and all of that, right? And just because it's India and it's not a mandate, we don't want to say that, this is not relevant, right? So we want to say that whatever best practices we have seen, whether mandated or otherwise in other countries, we want to bring the same to India. And so very happy that FreshBus is also a very forward-thinking organization, and they're really thinking through all of these things.
Yeah, I think again, as I said, if we establish the problem statement, like in this case is, so Ram asked me a simple question, Sai, it's okay, somebody calls him, but what if something happens before that? Right, so you have a feedback loop. The man in the middle will always increase the turnaround time. So that's where this, so in fact, I was willing to go ahead and work with one of the universities to get it done. But the moment I saw that this was actually done and implemented, very happy about it.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And this consultative approach is how our platform has also evolved, right? Because, so we work with today about 5,000 fleets globally, right? And everything we hear from people in different geographies even matters, right? So for example, some of our mining fleets, so mining vehicles, right? They have push-to-talk functionality, right? They have a walkie-talkie communication. And they told us that, okay, I am installing your camera for safety already. The camera has like connectivity, speaker, microphone, right? So why can't we just use this to communicate with my driver, right? Why does he need a separate device? I have to pay for separate connectivity and all of that, right? So then what started with mining, then we saw that, okay, there's relevance in other sectors as well, right? And this is just one example, right? So coming to, how we look at safety is, currently, say even in telematics, right, or video telematics where LightMetrics works, the focus is very device centric. Like, okay, AS 140 compliance, put a tracker, right? Or safety, just put a camera, right? And After that, what happens is kind of an afterthought, right? And for us, always, the camera, and is an enabler. Of course, it has to be a robust device. It has to work in Indian conditions. It has to work in the Telangana summer, and it has to work in the Delhi winter and everything in between, right? So that is very important. But say FreshBus has a fleet of 82, very soon like 250, 300, right? Now, if you put cameras on all of these buses, right, and you don't have any visibility on is the camera tampered, right? And of course, it happens, right? As you said, just like, people will be pilfering fuel, drivers will be trying to put a tape on the camera, right? Trying to tinker with it, right? And
So I'll probably interrupt you and tell a story.
yeah, please.
Probably telling too many stories.
No, there's nothing as too many stories, it's all good.
So this actually happened with us. Okay, so we started doing alcohol tests and also random alcohol tests, and in real time, like every 3 hours, randomly they get a test, right? So at some point we realized that the devices are getting disconnected. Okay, so and this is again a plug, right? So people keep disconnecting, and there is some gutka remains that were there in some of these devices, and so on and so forth. So I think where devices like this help is to go back and educate them, right? Like we told them that whenever we took the sessions, that see, alcohol is great, but you don't have to do that. So gutka is bad for your health, right? You try something else. So it's till that time we didn't even know. I mean, we know that they do gutka, but it's more like kind of a good feedback loop where we have something to train on, right? And also now at least like the disconnections have come from way high at one point, like maybe 1.5 years ago, to it became a regular part of their exercise today. And they themselves come and complain that, sir, this was broken, please fix it. So I think given that effort and time, things will turn around. So I thought I would give that example because once we start that effort and also train them on those effort, why, right? So when we go to them, especially somebody like Srinivas Garu, who was a additional commissioner transport, right? So he kind of when he says, right, impression is way higher, right? So where you like a fatherly figure, right? You can tell that okay, sir, we'll do the right thing, right? So that has to come from within the captains, right? The moment that comes in, we solved a big problem.
Right, and so in this particular case, right, so we think that solving the unglamorous problems is also very important, right? So let us take this case, right? And say if a fleet like FreshBus has installed hundreds of cameras, and these assets at any point of time are over a wide area, over 4 or 5 states, right? And the reason they put in the camera is that if there is an accident, if there is an incident, they should be able to retrieve the footage, right? And at any point, if say 10% of those are not working, they're offline, connectivity is not there, or someone has tampered with the camera, or tampered with the power connection, right? Now, the frustrating part, so someone like Sai would be, right, is when they have an incident and they want to retrieve the footage, we say, okay, no, camera didn't record because it was disconnected, right? And then would be like, okay, then why am I paying for this system, right? This was exactly the moment for which I needed it to really deliver for me. So our learnings have been that you have to make these things a core part of the platform, right? So for example, if you go to the LightMetrics dashboard, right, among all the other safety metrics, we give like device health metrics, right? At any point you say, okay, you installed 200 cameras, maybe 10 of them are not reporting since the last 24 hours, take a look at them. AI actually detects if the camera is tampered, mounted incorrectly, a notification will go, right? So their local depot manager can actually intervene next time the bus comes in, make sure that the whatever is fixed, so that you have almost 100% uptime, right? So for us, it's very much about these use cases, right? And that was touched upon earlier, I think, by Subhrajit, right? So if you deploy this technology at scale, it should not be like a, what should I say, fire hose of data at you, right? As the example was, right, if every bus of yours generates 4 or 5 incident videos, right? Say driver not wearing seatbelt or talking on the cell phone. Now, that's, I don't know, like 800,000 videos a day. Now, will you employ somebody to look at every video? What are you going to do? After a point, he'll be inundated and he will like, okay, check out of the system, right? So that's why, this concept of triaging comes, right? So we use AI and advanced analytics to say, okay, there's so many events were generated. What are the most severe events? Which are the drivers which need most help, right? How do you shortlist videos automatically, reduce the cognitive load on both sides, right? On the driver side and also the fleet manager. And then, really what's the outcome we want to have? The outcome we want to have is, you want a safer driver, you want a safer fleet, right? So the two things here, right? So every driver is different, right? Like some people habitually talking on the phone, and of course, I think probably policies prevent them from doing that, not seatbelt compliant and all of that, right? So when the fleet manager is sitting with them, what do they talk to them about? Specifically with examples.
So, I mean, that's too much. So let me break it down into 2-3 different components. So if certain thing like that happens and something did not work, the first person to blame is me, right? Because I have to take the responsibility that I did not put the right system in place, right? Yes, I think one of the biggest advantages I saw with the LightMetrics platform and the way it was built also, right? I think that that shows all the learnings that they had over a period of time, because if something happens, there was a video or 3 to 4 minute video around that incident particularly that helps. Also, yes, at some point that videos will increase, right? So I think a technology partner here would be really, really helpful in having that health status. Not just having a health status. Health status will not solve a problem. As you rightly pointed out, having the alerts, right? We have already worked on certain things internally, like as soon as an insurance expires, an alert goes to my compliance team, right? As soon as like the same simple IFTTT mechanism, nothing too fancy, but the right people getting the right alert at the right time, right, for them to act. So this goes not on the day of expiry, this goes 45 days before, right, so that they can actually act, right? In the same case, like what you rightly pointed out, the depot manager. So every time we have the bus back in our depot, we do an inspection check. Both the depot manager and the maintenance person does a quick 10-minute, 15-minute check, right? And fortunately, because of EV and it needs time for charging, we don't send the bus again right away, right? It takes that 1-2 hours, which is an opportunity for us, because if something like this happens, right, some disconnection happen, if we assure we could close that feedback loop and give the maintenance person a heads up. Yes, maybe there will be days where it's a world of percentages. We cannot get 100% every day. So probably if we are able to achieve a compliance of around, in stable state, around 95 to 96%, I think we have done a fantastic, fabulous job, right? So coming back to the other point of how we put this across, right? So we also have captain incentives in place, right? The best way to solve any problem is gamification, right? So we have incentives in place. Yes, we treat our captains very well, but if there is anything that goes outside the mandate of the company, we issue warning letters, right? 2 warning letters and he's out, right? Yes, there is depth, but that strictness and that discipline is also very important, right? And the incentives are also currently based on the driving performance. Since we have EVs, one of the biggest advantages, we have all the data, right? How much SOC is spent, what kind of harsh braking happens, right? What is the on-time performance of the captain, right? All these metrics help us, but this has to expand, right? So this has to expand, right? Like you rightly pointed out, to the learning outcomes, right? I think LightMetrics also has a great learning translation of the videos, right? So what this helps is, let's just say you had 20 seatbelt issues, right? A warning letter goes automatically without any intervention needed, and a part of the salary or the part of the incentive is cut. I mean, sometimes incentive, sometimes de-incentive, but the intent is that everything translates into kind of an actionable item. So he has a reason to do it, right? I would also say he or she has a reason to do
Yes,
it.
absolutely, right? Of course, we touched upon that, right? So you have women captains in Telangana as part of with the government, right? You've developed that, right? So maybe you can.
Yeah. So I think again, I think it was one of the previous panelists who were highlighting about the government's needing to do more. And yes, I would still agree. There's a lot that the government can still do more. But one gem that I really think the Telangana government did very well is this project called MOVO, right, where they actually trained women from rural villages who are interested in driving for a period of 2 years. Okay, so on multiple simulators, on some buses as well. So, and we partnered with them. So the captains are now shadowing, and also I think this was also pointed out in the last one of the questions about the hiring, right? I think one thing that we have to acknowledge is captains go through a lot. We have to give them some leeway, but hiring the captains with a very serious hiring policies, right? Like since we are doing nights and buses, we always make sure that they have at least 8 years of driving experience. And after we onboard them, they have to go through a medical in the first month of their stay at us. We give them an annual health checkup free of cost. This includes the vision, so that they have any any practices that they do. Again, processes in place, right?
No, that's a pretty nice, heartwarming story, right? I mean, of course, we are always talking about government doesn't work. I mean, to have this example where government, in partnership with a company like FreshBus, actually has done something like that, right? To bring, educate, and train these women to join the workforce and be.
Yeah, I think that's a great initiative. I think we want more women in this sector. I mean, if you see countries like US where women themselves drive for long distances alone, right? I think they have a very, like they are on par, I mean, almost on par with men. So I think that's also some area where particular parts of government are invested in. I think as operators, as fleet owners, I think this has to, at some point, because as more workforce gets into the industry, right, the industry gets more competitive, and more women come in. It also makes it a healthy work environment, because there is what is that word? Diversity in the workforce.
Oh, thanks, Sai. Right, and this whole thing about dignity and look, as I think Raman had said it. We didn't talk about the driver, right, or the captain. So one of the things we learned very early on is that a safety technology, right, whether it's telematics, video telematics, often it can be imposed as a big brother is watching you kind of thing, right? Where, okay, you did this wrong, you will be punished, right? Your incentive will be cut, or you will lose your job, right? That is one way to do it, not the most effective way. So what we realized is, if we spin it around and say, okay, these are coaching opportunities, you can be coached to improve. And even before that, let's not assume that all drivers are bad drivers, or they're all driving distracted or talking on the phone and all of that. There are good drivers, like have a reward scheme, right? So just like based on on-time arrival and all these other metrics, if you put in safety into the mix, right? So we track metrics like, how many kilometers did you run, did you drive without actually talking on the cell phone or or being distracted, or falling asleep or drowsy, right? So we have the scorecard reflects these positive actions as well, right? So while on the one hand you can coach the ones who are not doing as well, you also get to see, okay, who are my top drivers, right? And then maybe you can supercharge their incentives, right? Make an example, right? As you say, gamify it, right? So as people look at their peers and they say, okay, this month, you have the employee of the month, and this is because he went like 1,000 kilometers without a single safety violation, right? Then that's actually the most effective way to drive change, right? And
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the reason I was able to succeed here is also that, right? Because we were very collaborative in solving these problems, right? I mean, again, some problems will be solved with incentives, some problems will be solved with the incentives, but having to being able to put that number, right? 99%, 100%, 101%, not 101%, but you get my point, right? So it's basically that would give us the kind of confidence for the captains as well, that yeah, somebody is tracking me and I'm doing a good job. Like it's like a pat on the back for them. I mean, I think one of the reasons I also stayed back in tech, although I did my MBA, is because to be able to see that business and tech as one, right? And to be able to solve those problems. So, and I'm very happy that these kind of problems are being solved.
no, absolutely. I don't know how we are doing on time. Okay. So final thoughts, as you can see, we could have kept on going, right? There's so many stories right here. But, so we've engaged with you, and, now going forward, how do you see LightMetrics can enable your vision of creating a safe, compliant fleet, which is really working for your captains and your passengers, right? Where it aligns with your vision, right? Your founder's vision to create a tech-enabled, really safe and secure working environment. What do you see? How do you see that? Ideally, the partnership to.
Yeah, I'll use a different word than enable. I'll use the word empower, right? Because I think tech and processes empower and make things better, right? So I think LightMetrics, one of the biggest, as we discussed, right, is I want this to come to the standards of the world, right, and also go beyond, above and beyond. One of the biggest advantages that India has and is very well placed is to take leapfrogs. Like a lot of systems that were probably built in the Europe were built at times where there was no AI, right? Where, I mean, AI was there, but not at the scale that we have today, right? So this gives us a very unique opportunity in multiple fields, including this field, to leapfrog, right? And probably the way I want to see us probably having this discussion 5 years later, saying that we are setting the standards for the world. Yeah.
No, absolutely. On that note, right? I mean, if you look at fintech and UPI, right? You go to the US or Europe, it feels like pretty prehistoric, right? What we have done, and there definitely is an opportunity, right? We don't always have to think that we lag, right? And that's why working with organizations like FreshBus, right? It really gives us a chance to showcase that we don't always need to be a follower. We'll leapfrog, right? And we'll show the world like how it's done, and run, do great things together. So thank you, Sai. Thanks for your time, and I hope all of you had a. Please, yeah, sure.
FreshBus transports passengers.
Right.
I transport goods. My goods can be replaced. Your passenger can't be replaced if hurt or whatever. So how do you, let's say you've used Entangle earlier. I don't know what you've used. Okay. Sorry. So how do you differentiate LightMetrics to any other product to avert an incident?
Okay, so
Or I would put it in another way. How many incidents have you averted with better technology? I mean, I don't know how to put it, but if you get my question.
So just to before Sai answers, I let him answer it. Just to put some context, we've run a pilot with them over the last 3 months, right? And luckily, we didn't have any accidents in this duration. Of course, if there are accidents, we would have the footage and all of that. But what we do track as part of our pilot metrics is, incidents per 100 kilometers or incident per 100 miles, right? So we look at the trend, right? That, at the start of the pilot, without the driver getting notifications, how many, say, cell phone violations or seatbelt not wearing violations were there. And ideally, over a period of time, as drivers getting used, right, they're seeing, okay, someone is watching me in Telugu, they're telling me, right, not wearing the seatbelt, right? So do those incidents come down, right? That's an ideal outcome for that, right? So we track those metrics, but I will, yeah.
Yeah, again, as I said, a lot of things doesn't happen in a day or two, right? I had my fair share of problems from day one, right? Especially with the video telematics, not just video telematics, like a lot of devices in the buses doesn't work. I don't know why, but not just in the bus. I don't know if you're
Devices didn't work.
doesn't work the way they are expected to, right? Because a lot, I don't know how many of you face this problem, but I had to work with the vendors, see, okay, why this is not happening, because expectations on paper are different from expectations on the road, right? So I think we actually closed looped it, worked with OEMs again, right? Certain cases we had to take a, an approach for business reasons, but we invested in pockets to kind of see what works, right? And one such pocket is LightMetrics, where because we are not in this game to just run buses like 80 to 90, and also it's something where Sudhakar's vision is to transform this industry and make that better. So I think it's not just for us, safety is for everybody, right? And anybody who was willing, we would happily share our experiences, right, to make this better. And fortunately, as he said, no accidents, no fatalities. And I know the fleet size is still small. I know a lot of you might be having larger fleet sizes, right? And at that stage where we will be, I want to make sure that these systems are in place. And we have piloted them in pockets like this. Like, for example, we are running a pilot for 17 buses, okay, over a period of 1 year. Yeah, and this doesn't happen over time. So we have to let it take its toll, take the learnings, and then integrate it back into the system.
One more question.
Sure.
Who are better drivers, women or men?
Well, probably I'll answer that in person, if that's okay.
Thank you. One last question from the gentleman back there.
Sir, I have a very basic question to both of you. I must appreciate Sai for his clarity of thought and clarity of approach. That is why he is a successful CTO. That's a part. I would like to ask you a very fundamental question that we have is that we are not getting good drivers. And you said that you started with some kind of incentives and good things to drivers. Is there any result that you have seen that any family of your drivers have joined as drivers? That is one. That is the only thing I want to ask you. Second thing is for LightMetrics. I have tried the simulator here, and it was difficult for me to hear the voice command coming out of the camera. So in any case, if you are driving a bus, you might have so many ambient noises. So do you have some system by which you can either put it through the audio system? Audio system may not be good because it goes to the entire bus. So you have any system where it will really reach the driver, you increase the volume or something like that? That's
Sure.
all.
So I'll let you go
Yeah,
first.
so I'll answer the first question. It's an easy one. So one of the decisions that Sudhakar took at the start is we will pay the captains the best in the industry, right? So yes, it might be a little bit of an extra cost for us, but that would make sure that the best captain. So we will have a different problem. In fact, we have a different problem. Every time we need captains, there are people lining up. So, adding to that, one of the biggest and most important philosophies which I really appreciate is we pay them salaries on the first or second day of the month, right? And I heard this firsthand from multiple captains as well. So they're not used to this kind of thing. So these two things, more from a corporate standpoint, might, I mean, in a software world, if you are in, these are expectations. But in a captain's world, I think they are actually very, very big things. And there are two things that also make sure that, our retention levels are very high, especially in our captains. And the majority of captains that we kind of lose are either we sending them, most of them. So.
Thanks. So, sir, I hope you like the simulator experience. So I think here the volume has been kind of reduced. So we through the app or from the back end, we can turn up the volume. But what we additionally can do, and so public transit is a very tricky thing, right? If you increase the volume too much, you don't really want to hear the passengers to hear that the driver is not wearing a seatbelt and all of that. You don't want to freak them out. So what we usually do in these cases is, one, as I said, we can connect a seat shaker, a vibrator, so the driver will get a tactile alert, right? So no one hears anything. The other thing, a lot of times these passenger transit fleets they use a dial, so something visible is seen by the driver, right? There are pros and cons of every method, but there are ways to solve this problem.
I'll also tell you one experience. So we also go and verify what is happening with other operators. There's this one operator who tried to set this up, and the device started shouting commands in Chinese.
So you know where that technology was built.
And it started irritating the customers. It started irritating the captains, right? So, and they have to scale back. So yeah, I mean, again, it's not just us. There are other good people doing good stuff. So we learn from them as well.
On that note, thanks to everybody. Thanks, Sai, for this engaging discussion. I hope all of you learned something new. Thanks.
Thank you.